Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Cyrus Webb Presents. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. So glad you guys could join us once again. For those tuning in on the simulcast on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and on X, we're glad you all can be with us. Going to welcome our friends over on IG as well. Let them into the conversation. And last but certainly not least, going to bring in our friends over on Amazon Live, which is our primary platform for this conversation. If my guest looks familiar, it's probably because she is. We host a weekly show on Fridays on Amazon, of course, that you guys are able to watch across social. We're here, though, to talk about her book for those who are not familiar with it, but also tell you guys about the series. And we're now live on the Amazon platform. I'm going to type you guys in a quick welcome message over there. If you guys are new to us on Amazon, welcome. Make sure you guys do hit that follow button, either here in this corner or down below. You also see the book by my next guest, who's also my co-host of another platform. Ally Dalsimer is back with us. You guys know her as an author and speaker and media personality. I want to talk to Ally not only about the book, It's Okay Not to Be Fabulous Every Day, but I think a timely part of the book that really does help us understand that no matter how dark things may seem in our world, how we can continue to be a light. And we're going to talk to Ally about what that's been like for her in different challenges that she's faced, and also great reminders for all of you as well. Ally, welcome back to the broadcast.
Thank you so much, Cyrus. I am thrilled to be here with you again.
Well, always a pleasure to have you on. I was saying to you, for our audience that's joining us live, and I appreciate you guys already coming in over there on YouTube and on Amazon. So I appreciate you guys. I didn't realize when Ally and I scheduled this particular show to talk about our weekly show, it was going to fall on September the 11th. And I've been seeing, Ally, a lot of the remembrances that people have been posting. I remember for myself, even though I was here in Mississippi at the time, I had already left New York in 2001. I was just coming back from doing my weekly routine. It was on a Tuesday of getting my hair cut. That was my regular my regular thing when I heard about it. And I bring that up because I think for a lot of people, today's one of those days of reflecting, which is why I think us having the conversation about your book is so important. You've gone through challenges in your life, Ally. You've lost loved ones. You've gone through moments of disappointment. What has kind of helped you to kind of get through those times if you kind of reflect back on them?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think different people rely on uh, different things, and you can rely on family or friends or faith.
Hmm.
Um, and for me, I tend to rely on myself. It's the self reliance that I grew up with, and also I rely heavily on my children. I used to rely heavily on my mom until she passed. And, it's funny because I used to rely more on friends than I do now. It's interesting. You mentioned 9/11, and I hadn't thought about this. And we didn't talk about this before, but,
Hmm.
everybody remembers where they were if you're older when JFK got shot. For those of us who are a little older, you remember where you were when Diana was killed. And then for people who are a little more recent event where you were on 9/11. For me, I was in my office, and a friend of mine, a woman named Leslie, called me, and she said, "Hey, I'm watching CNN. There's just been an explosion at the Pentagon." And the building I worked in was directly across the highway from the Pentagon. And so I ran across the office and looked out the window, and I literally saw the mushroom cloud come up.
Wow.
And I remember looking at it, and there were these flecks of silver. And I was like, wow, I didn't know they still used metal desks in the Pentagon, because
Mhm.
you have no perspective, you
Yeah.
know. And so I kind of freaked out. And I remember I went around the office and I was like, yeah, there's been an explosion at the Pentagon. I'm leaving. Went to my desk. I grabbed my lipstick, not my calendar, not my any. I grabbed a lipstick, my keys, and I left. And I went to go see how my kids were doing. And as I was driving past the Army Navy Annex, there was this huge explosion behind me. And my car, I had a little tiny car at the time, and my car lifted up, went halfway over into the other lane, and deposited down. And of course, those shiny silver bits were actually bits of the plane that hit the
Mhm.
Pentagon. It wasn't a desk.
Mhm.
Um, but it was that whole event really put things into perspective in terms of what's important. The first thing I did was I went to check on my mom and grandma, and then I went to go to where my child was in daycare.
Mhm.
And that's what was foremost for me, which was, interesting. A lot of other people did other things. They called their spouse. I didn't call my spouse. I was like, he's fine.
Yeah.
And to be fair, the phone lines were pretty busy. But when I did try
Right.
to call him, I did eventually get through to him. But it's interesting, and you look back, and events like today, like being a 9/11, they really do make you look back and reflect and decide where you get your support, because it's in times of crisis that you need that support, and no one can go it alone. We're social creatures, and
Yeah.
we need to rely on some sort of network. As I said, friends, family, whatever it is.
Mhm.
But to circle back to your question, for me, it's my kids right now. They're
Yeah.
the ones who prop me up.
Yeah. And Ellen, and thank you so much for sharing that. I did not know that that experience of yours when it comes
Yeah,
to
it
the
was
9/11.
crazy. Can I share one more thing? Can I just
Oh,
say, because
definitely,
now
of
it's all
course.
kind of coming back to me in these like
Sure,
rush.
sure.
So I left my building, and I used to drive to work, and I parked in another building. There was a hotel that had public parking where we could park, because the parking in my building was like super expensive. And so I was running across the street to go to this hotel, and there was like bits of ash and debris hitting me in the face. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I'm in a CNN video. Like I'm in a CNN, like this is like I'm in a moment of history. I'm in a moment of news right now. It was really weird. It was really weird. I've never experienced that before or since, thank God.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was it. And I think that was something that many of us experienced, which is why the country, at least for a little while, came together.
Yeah. Such a great point. And I think it's so timely. And again, I appreciate you sharing that, Allie. I think for our audience out there, depending on where you are in the United States or the world, I think, there are so many people who do not have a lot of hope. They definitely don't feel the togetherness that you just referenced that happened afterwards, Allie.
Yeah.
And it leads me into what I thought about. I was not, when we initially scheduled this, was not meaning to talk about this, but you have actually a chapter in your book, and for those who have the print edition, it's on page 89, and the chapter is "Mean People Suck." Um, I want to talk about that broadly for a second because I think we're feeling a lot of that meanness right now. Um, for our audience out there, Allie, and I know we try to through our series try to help people to kind of think about looking at the world differently, looking at themselves differently, and what's possible differently. What has kind of helped you when it comes to the meanness that you faced in the world?
I think the thing that helps most is really understanding that people are mean and cruel because they themselves are broken in some way. They're unhappy. They've been abused, maybe, or mistreated in some substantive way, or they're in need of psychological or emotional counseling.
Mm.
There's something wrong. That's what gets me through it. I believe there is something wrong with people who are just mean or cruel, because I don't think by nature we're like that. As I said before, we're social creatures. We're meant to live together in communities. We're meant to help each other out. And there's no little child who is just cruel. Little kids are just they're just wired to help. They want to help. They want to do the best they can. They're always trying to show you how much they can do to be of service.
Right.
And so something happens along the way that breaks people in some way, that damages them. And
Mm.
that's what makes them mean.
Mm.
And it stinks. It stinks for them, and it stinks for those around them who they impact.
And we see that in so many ways. Ellie, you share what was a personal incident for you, but you said this, and this again is the broader thing I think for our audience, which is why I thought this was good to be able to share with our audience today. You say this: here's the truth, bringing others down will not lift you up. That's not how the universe works. When you engage with people who are mean or oblivious to other people and their needs, or who
We
only
should be good to
see
go
dark
though.
clouds, never able to find a silver lining, you allow their hate, uh, soplism, is that right?
Solipsism.
Solipsism, and pessimism to penetrate and pervade your psyche. I think that's such an important thing that it does not, and the way I read that as a reader is it doesn't help to try to stoop to that level. That's sometimes easier said than done, though. Allie, what's helped you to kind of realize that and to live that way?
Life experience.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I don't know that here's the thing. Whatever might work for me may or may not work for somebody else,
Sure.
right? Each
Yeah.
each of us is different. Each of us has our own circumstances. And I
Hmm.
think the best thing any of us can do if we're faced with someone who is trying to bring us down, who is
Hmm.
trying to undermine us in some way, is to remove ourselves from that person or that situation. Try to eliminate that negativity.
Yeah.
Because the bottom line is you can't always fix people who are broken, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you certainly can't help someone who doesn't want to help themselves, right?
Hmm.
My grandfather used to have this expression, God helps those who help themselves, right? Yeah, but
Yeah.
it all comes down to you have to do it. And we've talked about this in other conversations that,
Hmm.
I'm all about gracing yourself, kindness and patience and all the rest of it. But at the end of the day, it's, get your stuff together and do it. If you want to do it, do it. It's up to you.
Yeah.
And you can't you can't change other people. And
Hmm.
sometimes trying to help, there's an expression from Law and Order, right? Sometimes the good you do doesn't do you any good,
Hmm.
and you can end up in a worse place. And like I say in the very beginning of my book, I say, because it was life advice for my kids, and I tell them, be kind to others, but then I caveat it, because if they're not kind back, then you need to remove yourself, right? You give them an opportunity, and if they don't reciprocate, and if they're cruel to you in some way, then you don't put yourself out there for them, because that's just, you know it's the old, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome is the
Yeah.
definition of insanity.
Right.
And so you have to protect your own mental, emotional, psychological, physical health at all times.
So true. Hello to you, Stacy Thomas, over there on Facebook. Stacy says so true as well. And I want to say hello to you guys over there on YouTube. Appreciate the hearts over there. I want to reset real quick, Ellen, and say for those who are just tuning in, welcome. You all are watching Cyrus Webb Presents here on Amazon Live, but we are simulcasting this across social media: Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, X, and on Instagram. Ally Dalsimer is back with us. She's the award-winning author of this book, It's Okay Not to Be Fabulous Every Day. Ally and I both co-host, though, a show here on Amazon and also a podcast by the same name. You all can catch on Fridays here. So make sure you guys do join us for that as well, as we've now on season 2. Ellie, I think the reason why, again, I went to this, and I think I haven't said this to you, but I feel this way. Yours is one of the books that I have read in my life, and I read a lot of books every year, that there's a little something in there for almost every experience that you can read. Is that what you hoped your children would get? Because again, as you mentioned, and you mentioned that, of course, in previous conversations, you wrote this book, these thoughts first for your kids. Was that what you hoped too? That it would be some little nugget in there that they can be able to think about, regardless of whatever situation they were in.
Yes, it was. So thank you for that, and I'm so glad that you find that. Yeah, I was. I mean, the goal ultimately is to recognize that life is not linear. It is in sort of a time sense. We start young, we get old, but
Yeah.
it's not linear in terms of our experience. We have joys, we have sadness, we have grief, we have love, we have good days and bad days, and it's a
Yeah.
it's a very dynamic, up and down, back and forth, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. Sometimes we float, sometimes we run. It's a very dynamic process, and it's very multifaceted. Life is complex in the detail, right? The devil's in the detail.
Right.
And so, yeah, I would like for anyone who reads it to be able to find something that speaks to them for whatever their circumstance in life is.
Hmm. You also say this in that same chapter that I was referencing earlier of Mean People Suck. You go on to say, don't let these negative people drag you down into their dark abyss. Release them and move on. I also love the fact that you say this, that when it comes to people, and again, the things that we should remember about people, you say people are mean because at their core, they either don't believe in themselves, or they are afraid, whether they are aware of it or not. Their inner fears and self loathing drive them to behave in ways that are destructive, selfish, callous, and belittling. And then you write two words, Allie: ignore them. Now, that in itself, I try to live that way. It's not always easy to do, to ignore the stuff.
Mhm.
What helps you to ignore the stuff? I know you mentioned earlier about life experience and life, but what else can you share with our audience that has helped you that maybe they may find some benefit in as well?
You know, really the best thing that has helped me is trying to eliminate them from my lives, because you can't
Okay.
ignore someone if you keep
Yeah.
letting them in, right? You can't
Well, yeah.
ignore
Yeah.
someone's negative comments if you are calling them every day, or if you're
Right.
meeting them for coffee once a week. So you have to remove yourself from those negative influences. And I often talk about either a people or a place, right? Like either a person or a place. But that's because some places are filled with people who have negativity,
Hmm.
right? Like there's no point in going to some social club or a bar or whatever, wherever. There's no point in going there if you feel bad when you're there, because there's so much negative energy, because there's people who are bringing you down,
Yeah.
right? If you and you can't just go there and be like, oh, I'm still going to go to this particular club because, I don't know, I like the snacks. When and then expect yourself to have the strength to ignore everybody who is being mean.
Hmm.
Just cut the ties, cut your losses, find a new place, find a new group, find a new social club or a new book club, church group, whatever.
Hmm.
And find positive people to spend your time with. And that's what I have done. I have eliminated the people and places, in large part, um, that really sought to bring me down or that didn't support me. People don't have to actively try to undermine you, just by not supporting you. Those little negative comments, the little half, the ones that appear positive. Wow, you did amazing, even though,
Yeah.
fill in the blank. You're such a loser.
Hmm.
Um, and so I've really worked hard to remove myself from those people and from those places. And in doing that, you're better able to ignore it because it's not in your face all the time. It's really hard to ignore what is right there in your face.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's such a great point. Hello to you, Kyle. I see you over there on IG. Glad you could be able to join us as well. That you bring up a really interesting point, Allie, and I agree with you. I totally agree with you. I would add also for our audience, this is online and offline, and especially online these days.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times, I don't see a lot of things that some people see. Some people will ask me, "Well, Cyrus, didn't you see?" And I'll say, "No, actually, I didn't see." Um, I think a lot of times the choices we make, like you mentioned about being in certain rooms, both physically and virtually, I think also can help for sure, especially when you're trying to protect your peace, which is so important. Which is why also, Allie, I'm so glad here in season 2 of our show, a great segue and plug. Of It's Okay Not to Be Fabulous Every Day. It goes to show that all of us go through stuff. You share, in the book, many situations that you found yourself having to contend with, things that other people can relate to, but you also were able to share some great reflections as well as we continue the season 2 with our show tomorrow. Talk to us about what you hope the audience will be able to take away from not only your own reflections, Allie, but also your own considerations about how they impact your life moving forward.
I hope, really hope, that what they will take away is that they already have whatever they need. Like each of us has what we need inside to live a truly successful life. And I define success as loving who you are, who you're with, and what you're doing, irrespective of what that is.
Yeah.
And I really hope that people will read the book, see it through the lens of their own lives and their own experiences, and be able to lean into those things that resonate at a deep and meaningful level with them, and then have the courage to step forward, take that first step along the journey. The subtitle of the book is is a journey to self-discovery, right? And so I think so many of us don't really know what it is we want. and what we enjoy, because we're bombarded with external inputs, whether it's social media or family, friends, culture. We believe that we need to be or do or whatever, but is it really what we want? And I would hope that people will pick up the book, follow along, and follow their own path and their own journey, not comparing themselves to anybody else, just
Right.
doing their path, because whatever their path is the right path.
So true. I want to mention one more thing. This one chapter has a lot in it, Allie. One more thing that Allie says in this chapter: even if the process is frustrating or scary, it's important to fill our lives with light and love, to spend time with those who want the best for us, and to immerse ourselves in situations that nourish and elevate us. And I think that this ties in perfectly what you're just saying, Allie, about what you've been able to do for yourself, the importance of removing yourself. But I think that's also a great reminder for our audience to don't just sit in stuff and expect it to change. Sometimes you have to make sure that you're doing your part and being proactive in that as well. Allie, looking forward to tomorrow's next show. For those who are joining us live, of course, this is will be week number 2 of season 2. So make sure you guys are watching us on Amazon Live, or if you're watching us on social media, you can be able to check us out on the different platforms that you're watching us on now. Allie, let our audience know how to stay connected with you, and also how to sign up for your newsletter as well.
Yeah, thank you. The best way is on social media. I'm most active on Instagram. You can find me at Ally Dalsimer. And yeah, definitely sign up for the newsletter. Go to allydalsimer.com/newsletter. Comes out every other week, and it's full of tips and tools and resources to really help you um, live your best life.
Love it. All right, Allie. Well, I will see you tomorrow for our show.
100%. I'm looking forward to it, Cyrus. And thanks everyone for joining today.
Exactly. And I hope you all will join us as well. As Ellie said, we appreciate you all being with us. Until next time, you all make it a great one. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.